Hello, friends, and welcome to the reflection deal on this Eminem video here, which a series which I think is increasingly going to just become me trying to tell you why Final Cut is good. Um, and I'm saying this when I'm recording the voiceover for this in Adobe Audition, so I do realize the hypocrisy there, but we're just gonna roll with it. Basically, Final Cut's just really good, but like every other Adobe program is better. So like, yeah, just use Final Cut for everything, but then like when you need to like record some voiceover or make some motion graphics, then you boot up the Creative Cloud. That's when you anyway, I'm going to stop now. So this video over here. Oh, it's recommending me some videos. That's fun. Freaking Scott the Waz over here. I don't know what he's doing with his life. Anyway, I don't even know why I called him out. This video was interesting. It had a really interesting sort of creative process behind it because I had already written a piece of this script a long time ago. Like, after Revival came out, I had written this script, and I was constantly talking about this topic. Like I said during the credits, I was constantly talking about this topic throughout most of my college career, ever since I kind of fell into Eminem in the first place. But then Kamikaze dropped, and I was like, I was like, I want to talk about this now, because that album dropped, and I was like, it frustrated me so much that I was like, I just want to do this video now. So I scrapped the Tribe video, or delayed the Tribe video. I'll probably put that out later this year, maybe. We'll see. But I delayed the Tribe video, focused on this, finished the entire script in about a week, and then came back from a trip and just started cracking on it, basically. So it was sort of this process where it was like, I like giving the creative process the time it deserves, especially with this kind of stuff. I treat this like a passion, like a hobby. I want to make sure that every video I make is always the best possible thing that it can be. I never want to just rush something out to catch a trend, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I kind of was doing that, if that makes sense. So like I wasn't like I reordered the thing because it was more relevant now, because I wanted to talk about it now. But I also like it was an interesting thing because normally like a lot of these scripts take like months to fester and just sit on, but I just didn't do that this time. I finished the script and then jumped right into the video and kind of just kept going at it and at it and at it, and never really took the time and sat back until I was watching the final product a few times before uploading everything. And it, despite that, I'm really happy with the final result. I really am. As with all of my projects, I like the ability to say that this is the best thing that I've made on the channel yet, and I would say that that's the case here. In terms of editing, in terms of writing, in terms of production, in terms of all these different things, I think this is the best video they made yet. But that's going to hopefully be topped by the next one, because that's kind of how I do things. So we'll talk about editing for a little bit here. The big challenge here is that with a lot of the other music-related stuff I had, there were a lot of live performances I could pull from. But when you have a rap live performance, especially an Eminem show, there's just so much footage of the crowd all the time. Like I have in here, if I go through live at the Reading Festival in 2017, so much of this footage is so far away that there's not really much Eminem there. Where like with the Queen, I mean, there's some here, but there's not much to really pull from. So what I really had to do is I just had to gather some interview footage and just use music video footage whenever I was talking about him, and that's really all I had to work with. So when you were cutting back to something of Eminem, it was really challenging to be like, okay, I need to not reuse the same footage. So there are certain points in here where certain visuals from certain music videos, like I have a big chunk of the visuals of a music video in there. They're just spliced and messed with and all this different kind of stuff. To the point where it's like you couldn't like see the music video front to back per se. But yeah, that was kind of a challenge a lot of times when I had a voiceover and I was like just talking about Eminem doing a thing, like this bit, like I'm talking about, like I'm saying that this and like this is just what is this? Yeah, so this is just talking about who Slim Shady is, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll show some people that look kind of like they're voyeurs, they're like looking in on this sinister act, and that's like the worst of America. But then like here it's just video from Role Model, right? And then do I have Role Model again later on? I guarantee I do. I just need to find it. That's all 8 Mile. Yeah, here's more Role Model right over here. I have that over here, which is a different part of the same video. But this is all. This is Role Model, and then this is Role Model. So that's a fun time. So there's just a lot of different footage from the same music videos throughout this whole thing, just to put visuals on it. But the key is that those visuals acted as a sort of base layer, and I think more than any other video, I did a lot of what I'm going to call stacking. That's not a technical term, but I'm calling it that because Final Cut Pro doesn't have tracks like conventional, like Premiere, Vegas, something like that. What they do is you have your primary storyline. You have your primary storyline down here, and that's where I lay down all the audio. And then every piece of thing that's attached to it is directly attached to the piece of audio. So if I were to drag this, then that whole chunk goes with it. And not that that's necessarily useful for me in this case, because there's a lot of stuff animating between different things, and it's not always tied to the right piece of audio. But that's the idea anyway. So the reason why I call it stacking is just because there's a lot of points here where I can scroll all the way up, and I'm all the way up here at this point, and it's like you can't even see the audio this is technically tied to because it's all the way down here. It's just because there's so much going on. Because I had over here, right? So we start with like this is a lot of the like multi-movements. So you start from black, then we pull up Eminem talking about From When I'm Gone, right? And then we blur that and then go in here and pull up Eminem, the character, right? This is the character Eminem. What does the character do? Then we pull up the CD, right? Because this is the CD where Eminem talks about Eminem, right? And I mentioned that in the script. Then we move that CD over here just so we can get into the lyrics bit, right? And I put in White America and stuff like that. And some segments actually have motion in for those things, but here the cut looked better. So we went with the cut. And then we go through this whole thing with all these lyrics stacking on top of each other. I could have built this in like After Effects or Motion or something like that, but it just made so much more sense to just do it in Final Cut while I was here. And I wasn't doing anything crazy with the motion anyway, so I just did it all in Final Cut. So I did that all in here and have it all stack on top of each other. It's like how many layers at this point, right? Imagine doing this in Premiere. So you do that, and then after that, then we slide down this on top of it. So even though these layers down here eventually go away, and they go away with this covering over top, so you never see them technically go away, but then this is all over top, and so we're still stacked, and then this comes in talking about Slim Shady. So we're already on the next topic, but the next topic is over top of the old topic, and it isn't until we fade to black over here. Oh, nope, we don't even do that yet. We still got more to go. So we have Slim Shady. Here's the description of Slim Shady. And then we're putting in another thing over top. We're going down and talking about D12. And then we talk about the Slim Shady EP over here. And then finally, what we do is we fade out. So this could keep going. We could, instead of doing a fade out onto Dr. Dre, we could have done something else. We could have done a crossfade over here and kept it in this stack, but I just was like, I need to go back down here. So then we go down here, and then finally we go back here for that. So like, there's a lot of situations like this where things just end up stacking super, super high. There's a bit with Revival where the entire thing with Revival, where I'm like criticizing all those things and masking it, well, fake masking it. We'll get there. All the Revival stuff is all over here. So it's all way up high in the super high quote-unquote layer because it was all stacked on top of this stuff. So it's just interesting how that ended up playing out. And I think that just has a lot to do with how you choose to bring things into the frame and out of the frame. I think there's a video I'm working on for a YouTuber that you may or may not know, and they use a lot of black space in their videos. And what that means basically is instead of having the frame constantly filled all the time, they'll have black space basically, which means that things are moving in and out of that black space all the time instead of something covering over top of something else like I'm doing in this video. And the reason why, and that makes sense because you have that black space there, and I can't pull it up, so I'm not going to. But like, you would have that black space there, and then you would basically slide something out of the black space and then slide something in or fade something into something else. There's no real reason to stack things over top of each other in the way that I did in this video because you're not really filling the whole frame. So the way you would get rid of something is by either fading it into black or you would slide it off the frame or something like that. Where here there was just a lot of that kind of stacking stuff. This lyric, wow, this was a lot. I forgot that I put so much of Deja Vu in here. Deja Vu, by the way, and I'm gonna go. I think what I'm gonna do a little bit. I'm gonna go and just talk about just some aspects of the content of this video, because I think a lot of people, some of the people that watched it responded, and I don't think they got the wrong impression. I think they know what I was trying to say, but I think they just kind of disagree. So I just want to kind of elaborate a little bit on my thought process, which I couldn't really put in here because it felt a bit too tangential. So we'll get to that in a bit, but some other cool editing thing I did was over here with Revival, and I just wanted to brag about that. So we go over here, we have Revival, right? And I fade, so we have this whole thing, and then what he doesn't deserve credit for is Revival, and I do the same kind of thing I did before. Like, oh, he doesn't deserve that. I go, oh, I'm tired. And we slide that down like that. Then we put in Revival. We do the same kind of movement there, and that goes like that. And then we move it over here as if we got the lyrics, and we have Bitch I Wrote Stan, which it was one of the last additions I made to this thing. I was like, in the script, I didn't get this part in the editing, but I was like, I think I should put that in there because not even if you miss the point of why I'm including it, I thought it was a good enough inclusion because that lyric in and of itself sort of represents the sort of hypocrisy of Eminem in 2018, 2017, because it's like this, you know, not saying like bitch isn't exactly the worst word of all time, and I've certainly said it jokingly or seriously or whatever, but it's not like it's not a super bad word in that sense. It's not super offensive, but I think it kind of represents, if you use that term, it almost kind of represents, it has that power of the sort of content that Eminem's had in his past. And so I see this as like a representation of that, and then him being like, I wrote Stan, which is this self-aware thing saying like, oh yes, I did make all that controversial content and it's really badly affecting my fans and I'm aware of that. So it's kind of like this weird double standard. I think I might be looking too deep into that because honestly, like I said, I don't think using the word bitch in a song makes you a bad person. I don't think saying the word bitch in general makes you a bad person, because if it did, then I'd be kind of a hypocrite now, wouldn't I? But then anyway, what happens is then we rotate this in, but what it does is the Revival thing, it looks like that I'm masking this footage in the CD, in the album cover, and I really like that effect. But the thing is I didn't actually mask it because you can't as far as I know, you can't mask things in Final Cut. You'd have to go into Motion or After Effects to do that. So I was like, instead of making an After Effects project just to mask this stuff, I decided, and timing it all out and all that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a perfect crop that's just perfect. So it looks like it masked, but it isn't. And I'm very proud of that. I can't believe I ended up, that worked as well as it did. Like, it just looks solid AF. I'm very proud of that. So that's some of the tricks of the trade here that went into this video. This thing over here, this is the only, after Danganronpa gave me so many problems with compound clips, I only used one in this entire thing, and it's this one here, which is just this bit of text. And the reason why was because I wanted to slide this whole thing out at the end when I did this. And that's right here. So I can slide the whole thing down. And and the reason why I did it that way is because with keyframing, what happens a lot of the time is if you were to say, I want to move this text and this text down the same distance in the same amount of time, it doesn't matter. Even if you did like a linear movement, right, which wouldn't look good. But let's say you decided I'm going to do a linear movement, it still wouldn't look right. It wouldn't look like the whole group is sliding out at the same speed at the same time for whatever reason, especially in Final Cut. Final Cut keyframing is good but wonky. Um, where Premiere definitely gives you more control over it, but because of that, it takes more time. So anyway, I'd compound clip that just for that one movement. But the in Danganronpa compound clips kind of gave me a whole nightmare. So that was that. One other piece of fun fact, and I'm gonna go into content. I think is that this footage right here is footage from Shrekfest 2018. But it's just so distorted that you can't tell. It just looks like it's some random party. But that right here is Shrek. That's a Shrek. This is a green inflatable Shrek costume, and her head is right here, or their head is right here. And their legs are like around here. But that's Shrek. That's a Shrek. So now you know. And also the reason why Zach's here, is because where is it? The reason why Zach's there is because he was supposed to be in the Danganronpa video, but I forgot about him. And then I also included this bit here, which is also from Shrekfest 2018, which is why they got those ridiculous outfits. Not super ridiculous, but like look at that tie. Anyway, so that's this really. That's kind of what went on there. There's a lot of compared to like the Monopoly video where the whole strategy was we're not gonna make any hard cuts at all. This video had a lot of hard cuts. Like even right at the beginning where I go, boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's another thing. There's a lot of times when it looks like something's cutting to black, but I'm actually just using black to cover it up. This is one text layer, and I just put black boxes over top to cover it up to make it look like those layers are going out. And the same thing happens over here with this, where it looks like the whole thing is fading to black and fading in, but I was too lazy to do opacity for all of this and all of this, so I was like, I'm just gonna put a black box over top of it and fade it in and fade it out, and it looks exactly the same. You have no way of knowing. It's so good. I'm very happy about my goofs. Anyway, so that's that video. It took me a long time to make. It took me way longer than I expected it to. Just in terms of editing time. But I guess the more detail-oriented you become with these kind of things, the more time it takes. So that kind of makes sense. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to mute this, and I'm going to full screen. I'm going to give you some visuals, and we're just going to talk about a little bit about some of the content here, because, most of the comments were very supportive, and I continue getting people that are like, hey, watch this video. They're like recommending it. I'm really thankful for that, because I know that the music videos on my channel, the music-related content, isn't the popular content, but it's honestly, I enjoy the music-related content I make on this channel a lot. Like, not more than everything else, I would say, but it's like it's always a favorite. When I'm doing a music-related video, I'm like really happy. I don't know. The Danganronpa video, when I did it, I was happy writing it, but when I had to get to editing, it felt like a slog. Like I don't know. I had more fun editing this than I had fun with the Danganronpa thing, if that makes sense. And I think it's just like, I like doing these like animated like text things, pseudo animated text things with the lyrics. I don't know. I just liked editing this a lot. But so with the content, a lot of people were saying that like that I was kind of almost overgeneralizing a little bit, and that in some ways, like, first off, Eminem's kind of an easy target, right? Because Eminem has gotten so much crap for his use of that slur for so long now, since probably 2010. He's sort of an easy target when there's so many other people in hip hop and in pop culture in general that deserve the same kind of breakdown or treatment or whatever. And in some ways, one comment that I got, which is very interesting, it was basically talking about it was basically kind of saying that, like, hey, like, there's so many other people that have these kind of problems and they don't get this crap, so why does Eminem get this crap? And I agree with that. I think in some ways this video, even though it's a topic I'm passionate about, and even though I think his past with this language is more interesting because he had an excuse, had being the key word, because he had that excuse, I find the history of it more interesting. But I don't think, I think it's an interesting question when you're talking about language and content from musicians, because it's like you could be an actor. You could be like, Leonardo DiCaprio in Django. I wouldn't call him a racist because he said the N-word when he was playing the role of John Candy in Django Unchained. Same with, any white actor saying the N-word in a movie about slavery. That's a vertical slice of that time, right? Or even the same thing with like, if we're talking about homophobia, like, I mean, if your subject matter is about, poor treatment of gay people, and you have actors that are saying that word, then like, of course, they're not necessarily homophobes themselves. They're just saying the language because of the fact that that's their role, that's their part that they have to play, right? And it might not be happy, but you could be playing a murderous psychopath, and that's not exactly happy either, and that's just what's going on. So I think with music, I think that line is harder to define. I think that there are some acts that I that maybe say even worse things than Eminem that I constantly listen to, and I'm like, it's all good. But I think with Eminem, I think the thing that bugs me about it, and what I tried to stress a lot towards the end, and maybe I could have done a better job about it, was stressing the double standard. It's the fact that you can't make a thing being all woke and modern, and then in the same album say this contradictory stuff. That's the same kind of problem that Kanye has sometimes with some of his music. I mean, I love Jesus, but you can't be like, yo, I'm selfless and I'm Jesus, and then like brag about how much money and women you have. Like so there is that double standard too. So I think it's that hypocrisy and double standard that irked me, and I think it especially irked me with Eminem, which kind of inspired me to make this video. But then there are other artists, like thinking black metal. I'm thinking like Mayhem, freaking, I mean, everything Varg Vikernes is involved with, Burzum, that whole thing. Like, the cover of freaking Burzum's EP is quite literally a church that he most likely set on fire. So, in that sense, and like they were like pro for that. They were pro violence against Christians and like all this different kind of stuff. So like, but at the same time, for some reason, I can go and listen to that music and be okay with it. And I don't, and so I think that conversation is interesting. I think it's like, how can, why does certain stuff irk you more than other things? Like, because everyone does bad things. Everyone's done something regrettable in their life, And so, what bugs me about Eminem that doesn't bug me about all these other artists? What bugs me about Eminem that doesn't, all that kind of thing? And then on the other hand, then there are other artists that I'm not even going to give the pleasure of talking about. I mean, like the whole thing when I was like, there are these rappers that actually do the things Eminem talk about. I put up footage of Chris Brown and Trick on the screen, and then there's 6ix9ine and some other artists like that actually were convicted or pled guilty to doing things that Eminem raps about. In 6ix9ine's case, stuff that's even worse than what Eminem raps about, right? Believe it or not. So, and yet they're still top 10 artists. So that frustrates me. But I think there's an element where with Eminem, I'm willing to like talk about it. Well, I think where there's other artists where like I don't even want to give them the attention of making a video about them in that way. Because there are going to be people that watch this video, right? And even though I very harshly critiqued Eminem, at the end of the day, I did admit I'm still a fan of his music. I still like his music, right? And I think that there are going to be people that watch the video and then go back and listen to Eminem albums, right? I don't want if I made a video about 6ix9ine or Chris Brown or all these other people, I wouldn't want like that's a level where I'm like, I don't think I would want them to go back and listen to their stuff, And as that's someone who liked 6ix9ine's release last year, right? I liked it, but now this stuff came out and I can't bother to listen to it. Where there's other stuff from people that have done just as bad things or other bad things that I can listen to. So I think there's that kind of weird conundrum with it, and I think that's a conversation worth having, and it's a conversation I couldn't really have in this video on its own, because there's just so I was focusing more on the characters here rather than just, oh, Eminem's a bad person, you know, because that wasn't what I was trying to say. I don't think Eminem's inherently a bad person. I think he's just ignorant and doesn't realize some of the double standard stuff that he does and says. Because and maybe people disagree with me on that too, but I don't know. I that's how I sort of feel about it anyway. The other thing I want to mention is that I just want to kind of talk about my opinion of some of these songs in general, because I kind of just showcase them, and especially in the later discography, I think it's kind of unclear. Not that it really matters to the narrative of the video, but like how I actually feel about these albums. So for the record, I have not listened to Infinite, the first album, and then the Slim Shady LP is quite good, and I think in terms of I think it works. I think it works in terms of the whole album is the Slim Shady LP. It's all Slim Shady. So, like, there's some messed up stuff in there, but it's like, it works. The Marshall Mathers LP then kind of is the start of some of the weird double standard stuff, but it's not too bad because there's still a separation there. So I really like the Marshall Mathers LP as well. The Eminem Show, in terms of music, I don't like it as much, but I think it's a good album for what it is, but it's hard to revisit it. I don't know. I just don't go back and revisit any of those early albums, to be honest. But I would say of the bunch, I would probably go with the popular opinion that the Marshall Mathers LP is probably the best. There's some really vivid storytelling there with Stan and Kim and even Criminal that just haven't been really replicated in later Eminem projects. So that's really good. But then when you get to Encore's garbage. I really don't like it. But there are some songs on there that I really do like and I can come back to. So I think it's one of those things where with Encore, like, I couldn't listen to that full album because that middle part is just so intolerable. And it sucks though, because even the intolerable songs are catchy. That's the problem. It's that you're just jealous of me because you just can't do what I do, but instead of just admitting it, you go around and say, because I really mean things about me because you're a weenie. The beat behind that's so freaking good, and it's wasted. So it's like I keep having the boom, 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 boom in my head all the time, and it's like, come on. It's like the song isn't good, but like, it's like I have to. Same thing with Shake That. Shake That's disgusting. That I'm angry that became a number one song, because that's quite literally, hey, let's drug up some women and then rape them. like that's literally what he read. I don't freaking know. So, okay. So then we got King Mathers. There's the song I actually like that was probably going to be on King Mathers is Goat. So I would suggest giving that song a listen. I was originally going to include it in this video somewhere. But the thing I like about it is it has like this sort of like, the thing about the Encore, like that sort of era of Eminem, even like when the lyrics are good and when like he figures it out, like his flow is consistent. It doesn't matter how, like, the problem was he just couldn't write anything, but the flow was consistent. And with the Goat song, like, the lyrics were actually pretty solid, so it was kind of reflecting on people saying he's the greatest rapper of all time. But like, given what he said, who he is, and the fact that he's white, like, what does that say about Eminem? In that sense that people are calling him the GOAT, you know, and I thought that was really interesting. But it has this really interesting flow. It's like this triplet flow because the beat is like and he goes like, I'm a goat and I don't know what you think, but these magazines they never put it in ink. But how would it look if they consider me as a goat? It's like really good. So like that's a really solid song from that era. So my point is just because he was on drugs and just because, like, you know, all this kind of stuff, like, there were some good songs in there. It wasn't exclusively I'm gonna make all bad songs to kill my career. No, he tried to make good songs too, but I think there was an element where he was just kind of like, I'm done, and that's what the It's Been Real song kind of symbolizes. Relapse is my favorite Eminem album. It probably always will be. And I think I like it so much because of how it contextualizes all that stuff. There's no ambiguity to it, and that's kind of what I was trying to say in the video. Because Slim Shady LP was just Slim Shady, and that's fine, but I like the Marshall Mathers and Eminem aspects to his music. And with Relapse, I think it works because At the beginning, it's like he goes in and sees the doctor, and then he has this relapse, right? But sees the quote unquote doctor, but then he has this relapse with Mr. West, the first thing, right? And then he goes in, and then he just raps like it does 3 a.m. and then my mom, and then insane, and then bagpipes from Baghdad. It's like all these crazy like freaking like insane rhymes. But then what happens is like, okay, so there we go. Shady's back. He's rhyming. He's saying some crazy stuff, right? And then after that, we have the Tanya skit. And then Same Song and Dance comes in. And then freaking what's the other song that comes after that I'm thinking of? I have to go into this now. Da 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 da. I'm going into iTunes. Here we go. In Relapse, we got Same Song and Dance, and we got We Made You, which is like, like we made you. Like this is you. Like you, the audience, are the reason why Same Song and Dance exists. And then Medicine Ball is another kind of thing that's like, I'm just letting it all out and all this kind of thing. And then we have the Paul skit, which is whatever. Stay Wide Awake is the one I was thinking of. That's like crazy. Because that one's arguably darker than Same Song and Dance to some degree. It's just not as open about it. And then Old Time's Sake is good. I like it. Must Be the Ganga is weed song, but it's just drugs again. And then finally we got Mr. And that kind of works as tying back to drugs, because then we got Mr. Mathers, and then Deja Vu, which is probably, honestly, I'm gonna be the weird one and say that Deja Vu is my favorite Eminem song. I really like the sort of depressed flow he has on there, and the lyrics are really good. Just well written song. Sometimes I feel so alone, just don't know down this road before. Yeah, it's a good time. So I really, and then Beautiful kicks in, right? And then the only problem I have with the freaking album is it just undoes all that later on. Like this does not need to exist. Like the Steve Berman skit can exist, but it doesn't really work anymore when it's like, oh, I got 2 albums, but then he completely changed the second one, right? But these two, the fact that Beautiful exists and then comes back and is like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment you've all been waiting for, Slim Shady. It's like, you killed him. Like, the whole deal is like, I'm back. Yeah, like, I've recovered. I'm like clean. I'm free of him, right? And that whole thing. And then I don't know. And then there's the song I really like, which I didn't mention, is "Careful What You Wish For." That's another thing where it's like his struggle. Like he doesn't want to be Shady anymore, but Shady's back. I wish that was on the main album. I wish that was on the album, like around like 3 a.m. My Mom towards the beginning, because it's a really good song. I really liked it. So then we got that, and then we got "Recovery," which I'm just gonna go back and put this one up here. Recovery, Marshall Mathers LP2, Revival, Kamikaze. I probably like Kamikaze the most, but I can't. But the thing is with that is like I'm saying that in terms of like how he raps, but I can't go back and listen to those modern projects. I just can't. Even MMLP2, like a lot of people love MMLP2, and I think it's deserving of that title, and I think it has some really good tracks on it, like Bad Guy and Evil Twin, right? But there's just some stuff in the middle. It's just, it's either just, I only can go back to like 4 or 5 songs on that thing, and so I just don't. So that's that. And then Revival, I don't listen to at all. And Recovery is just a mess. I mean, I love the soft songs on there. I like the songs that people are like, oh, this is too poppy. I love them. They're great. Not Afraid's great. Love the Way You Lie is great. Even The Monster from MMLP2 is great. You know, they're great songs. Yeah. But then on Kamikaze, we like every track on it except for Nice Guy, Good Guy, Venom. You know, except for the last 3 tracks, like it's good. And but all of those albums are fairly. I don't like them. Yeah, but but the thing is also like, there's also this element where with everything I've kind of explained in the video, it's not like I'm going back and listening to Eminem really much at all, you know? Like, the thing is, even though I broke down all this stuff, and even though I have all of his albums, and even though there's a period of time where I really listened to him, I think the thing with Eminem that a lot of people don't want to admit is he's sort of a gateway drug, for lack of a better word, into real rap. And I'm not saying Eminem's not a real rapper. I think he in terms of flow, and rhyming, like, he's one of the most talented out there. But um, I think people that don't like rap like Eminem, and that isn't the case with so many other things. The only other artist I can think of where that's the case is someone like Snoop Dogg, and just with his popular songs. There aren't many other, maybe, like, if you want to consider the likes of like 21 Pilots or something like that in terms of them like rapping on their songs, right? Like, you don't see much of. You don't see an artist like Eminem in that sense that acts that way. So I think the thing is that part of the reason why I can dismiss Eminem now and just be like, I don't really listen to him anymore, despite all of this knowledge I have of his music, is because I've just moved on. I've grown past it. And I think the people that go back, and I'm not saying this is the case for everyone. If you're watching this and you're one of these people and you don't feel this way, I'm not saying it's everyone, but I think that there's a substantial amount of people that still listen to Eminem today, and I think they do it because they're still like, they haven't matured in that sense yet. They still want to be angry. They still want to, say poop and dick jokes, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think that there's a lack of maturity that inherently comes with Eminem music, and there are very few songs, Deja Vu being one of very few, where Eminem shows true maturity, and I think those are the songs that I go back to now. Where before, I think a lot of people went back to Without Me or Real Slim Shady or all these other songs that are just kind of crazy, right? Those aren't the songs that go back to now. It's the songs, because that's what I appreciate in rap now. I loved, the albums that I love now, the To Pimp a Butterflies, the freaking We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service, the album I was going to talk about before I ended up making this video. The freaking, even Brockhampton, like, I mean, there's deep lyrical content there that means something. Well, I think with Eminem, a lot of it is just kind of comes down to stupid humor. And I think that level of immaturity just kind of comes inherently with Eminem music, and I think that's why a lot of people like Eminem, but I also think that's why he gets a lot of crap. I think a lot of people kind of grew past Eminem and now are looking back like, why did I listen to this? And I guess my answer is, well, I listened to it because it's good rap, but it's not mature rap. It's not there's better stuff out there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's certainly not the Logic album that I have at the top of this freaking thing that I just put in, but I have a friend who really likes Logic, and I was like, you know what, I'll cave. I'll get the one good Logic album, the one okay Logic album, and I'll buy the new one because but I did buy the rest of the Carter series when the Carter 5 came out, because I had always been streaming all of these and I just never did. Iridescence is a really good album. I'm gonna go now. That's about all I got. This was very long situation, and a lot of it just ended up kind of being talking about Eminem and stuff like that. But I hope that it gave you some insight into the behind the scenes of this video, and I also hope that it cleared some things up in terms of like how I feel about Eminem as an artist outside of the lens I looked through in that video, if that makes sense. I'm just still waiting for Yandhi, but the thing is, there's a catch-22 with that too, because he freaking, he did the thing where he's like, I'm gonna abolish the 13th Amendment, and we're like, what are you saying? And then he clarified, and he's like, no, we need to fix the 13th Amendment. Like, good on you, Kanye. You're figuring it out. Just, freaking keep wearing your positive energy MAGA hat or whatever. He's so confusing. But once again, that's another thing where it's like, for some reason, I can listen to Kanye and not complain. Like, I don't care about what he thinks, and I know I shouldn't care what he thinks, because I know that he's just like Kanye. But for some reason with Eminem, I care more. I don't know why. So I made a video about it. That's where we're at.